She pulled a dying stranger from a burning car on the highway, never seeing his face through the smoke. The next morning, she woke to find 50 black luxury cars lined up outside her apartment. The man she saved was a mafia boss, and he'd just declared her family. The Brooklyn-Queens expressway never slept, but tonight it was dying. Mara Vasquez pressed her fingers against her temples, fighting off the headache that came with every double shift. 14 hours.
2 cardiac arrests.
1 stabbing victim who coded twice. And still, the radio wouldn't shut up. Unit 47, we've got a pile-up near exit 32. Multiple vehicles. You're closest. Her partner, Dennis, groaned from the driver's seat. We're off duty in 6 minutes. Mara reached for the radio. Dispatch, we're responding. Dennis shot her a look. Your kid's waiting. Mateo's 12. He can microwave his own dinner. She didn't mention that her ex hadn't sent child support in 3 months, or that her fridge currently held 1 expired yogurt and half a pizza. Drive. The expressway came into view like a scene from hell. Brake lights stretched for miles, cars abandoned at strange angles. Smoke rose in thick columns against the New York skyline. But something was wrong. There were no fire trucks, no police, no other ambulances. Just silence and smoke. Where is everyone? Dennis whispered.
Ma kapt her jumpbag.
Doesn't matter. Someone's hurt. They ran past frozen vehicles, past drivers with phones pressed to their ears, past a woman crying on the hood of her Honda. The smoke grew thicker. And then Mara saw it. A Bentley Continental GT, black as midnight, crushed against the concrete divider. Flames licked up from the engine, spreading fast. The driver's side was crumpled inward, spiderweb cracks across the windshield. But the driver was still inside.
Jesus Christ, Dennis breathed.
We need to wait for fire. Mara was already running. Mara, stop. That car's gonna blow.
She didn't stop.
Couldn't stop. Because through the smoke and shattered glass, she could see him. A man, slumped forward, blood streaming down his face. His chest was moving. Barely. She tried the door.
Jammed.
The flames were climbing higher, eating through the hood. Heat blasted her face, singing her eyebrows. She could smell gasoline.
Thick.
Heavy.
Wrong.
Mara, get back. She grabbed her tactical flashlight, the heavy maglite Dennis always mocked her for carrying, and smashed it against the window. Once.
Twice.
The glass finally gave on the third hit, showering her arms with fragments. Smoke poured out, choking her. She held her breath and reached inside. The man was trapped. His seatbelt had locked on impact, pinning him against the seat. But it wasn't just the crash. As her hands found his chest, checking for injuries, her fingers came away red. Gunshot wounds. 3 of them. 2 in the shoulder, 1 in the side. Oh God, she whispered. This wasn't an accident. Someone had shot him, then let him crash. The fire roared louder. She could hear the metal groaning, warping from the heat. 30 seconds. Maybe less. Mara yanked her trauma shears from her belt and started cutting. The seatbelt was thick, reinforced. Her hands shook as she sawed through the material. The man's head lolled forward, blood dripping onto her arms. Come on, come on, come on. The belt snapped. She grabbed him under the arms and pulled. He was heavy, dead weight, and the door frame was too narrow. His shoulder caught on twisted metal. Behind her, Dennis was screaming something, but the blood rushing in her ears drowned him out. She repositioned, braced her feet against the car frame, and pulled with everything she had. They tumbled backward onto the asphalt just as the Bentley exploded. The blast wave threw them 10 feet. Mara's back hit the pavement hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs. Heat washed over her like a physical thing. Dennis appeared above her, dragging both her and the man away from the inferno. You crazy, are you insane? Dennis was yelling, but he was already checking the man's pulse, helping her roll him onto his side. He's bleeding out. Mara's training kicked in. Pressure on the shoulder wounds. I've got the side. Her hands moved automatically. Gauze, pressure, tape. The man's face was turned toward her now, visible in the flickering firelight. Older, maybe late 50s. Strong features beneath the blood. Expensive suit, torn and smoking. A gold watch that probably cost more than her car. But it was his eyes that stopped her. They opened just a crack.
Dark.
Focused.
Aware.
He looked directly at her, lips moving. She leaned closer.
Don't talk.
Save your strength. You, his voice was barely a rasp. Pulled me. It's okay. You're safe now. His hand, impossibly strong despite the blood loss, gripped her wrist. You don't know what you've done. Then his eyes rolled back and he went limp. Mara. Dennis had the portable radio out. I've got a pulse, but it's weak. We need to move now. They loaded him onto a backboard, working in synchronized silence born from 100 calls together. Sirens were finally approaching, fire trucks, police, more ambulances. But Mara didn't wait. They carried him to their rig and started driving. In the back, racing toward Bellevue, Mara worked to keep him alive. For line, oxygen, monitoring his vitals. The bullet wounds were through and through, which meant he might actually make it. As they pulled into the hospital bay, Dennis caught her eye in the rearview mirror. That guy, he said quietly. The suit, the car, the bullets? That wasn't random violence. I know. So, why'd you pull him out? Mara looked down at the unconscious man, at the gauze she'd pressed against his wounds, now soaked crimson. Because that's the job, she said. We save everyone. But as she helped will him into trauma, as doctors swarmed around the gurney, one of the ER nurses grabbed her arm. Mara, honey, you need to wash that blood off.
Now.
I will. I just need to. Now, the nurse's eyes were wide, frightened. Trust me. You don't want anyone seeing you covered in that man's blood.
Why?
Who is he? The nurse glanced at the trauma room, then back at Mara. Nobody knows his name yet, but those tattoos on his chest? I've worked in this ER for 20 years. I know what they mean. She gripped Mara's arm tighter. You just saved someone very dangerous. And very powerful. Now go home, kiss your kid, and pray nobody saw you pull him out of that car. Mara's blood ran cold. What do you mean, pray? But the nurse was already walking away, and Mara was left standing in the harsh fluorescent lights, covered in the blood of a man whose name she didn't know. A man who, in 12 hours, would arrive at her doorstep with 50 cars and a debt she couldn't refuse. Mara should have gone home. Instead, she sat in the staff lounge, staring at her hands. She'd scrubbed them 3 times, but she could still see traces of blood under her fingernails. The coffee in front of her had gone cold an hour ago. Through the window, she could see the trauma room. Doctors moved in controlled chaos around the man she'd pulled from the fire. He was alive. Stable. That should have been enough. But the nurse's words kept echoing in her head. You just saved someone very dangerous. Vasquez. She turned. Her supervisor, Rita Chun, stood in the doorway. Behind her were 2 men in dark suits. Federal agents. Mara could tell by the way they stood, rigid, alert, scanning everything. These gentlemen need to ask you some questions, Rita said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. They were screaming. Be careful. The taller agent stepped forward. Ms. Vasquez, I'm Agent Morrison, FBI. This is Agent Torres. We need to discuss the man you brought in tonight. Mara's throat went dry. I don't know anything about him. I just pulled him from a car. A car that was riddled with bullets, Torres said. He was younger, sharper. 9mm rounds. Professional hit. The kind that doesn't miss unless something goes very wrong. I wouldn't know about that. I'm an EMT, not a detective. Morrison pulled out a tablet, showing her a photo. The same man, but cleaned up. Conscious. Standing in what looked like a courthouse. He wore an expensive suit and an expression that could freeze blood. Vittorio Leone, Morrison said. Does that name mean anything to you? Mara shook her head. He's the head of the Leone Syndicate. Organized crime, racketeering, money laundering, suspected involvement in 12 unsolved homicides. He's been untouchable for 15 years. Morrison leaned closer. Until tonight, when someone finally got close enough to put 3 bullets in him. The room felt smaller suddenly. Colder. Did he say anything to you?
Torres asked.
In the ambulance? At the scene? Anything at all? Mara thought back. The grip on her wrist. Those dark eyes. You don't know what you've done. He was unconscious, she lied. He never spoke. The agents exchanged glances. Ms. Vasquez, if he told you anything, names, locations, threats, we need to know. For your protection. There's nothing to tell. I pulled a man from a burning car. That's it. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he placed a business card on the table. If that changes. If he contacts you, if anyone contacts you, you call this number immediately. Do you understand? Yes. And Ms. Vasquez? Torres added. You might want to take some time off. Maybe visit family out of state. People connected to Vittorio Leone have a habit of dying suddenly. They left without another word. Rita closed the door behind them and let out a breath she'd been holding. Mara, what the hell were you thinking? I was thinking someone needed help. That someone is a crime lord. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Leone family doesn't forgive and they don't forget. You're a witness now. Maybe the only witness to whoever shot him. I didn't see anyone. It was just smoke and fire and… It doesn't matter what you saw. Rita's voice cracked. It matters what people think you saw. The people who shot him? They're going to wonder if he talked. His own people? They're going to wonder if you're FBI. You're caught in the middle of a war you don't even understand. Mara felt the weight of it settling onto her shoulders. The nurse had tried to warn her. The agents had tried to warn her. And now Rita was trying to warn her. But what was she supposed to have done? Let him burn. I need to go home, Mara said quietly. My son is alone. Rita's expression softened. Take the rest of the week off.
Paid.
And Mara? Lock your doors. All of them. The drive home took 40 minutes, but it felt like hours. Every car behind her looked suspicious. Every shadow seemed to move. When she finally pulled into her apartment complex in Queens, the parking lot was empty and dark. She took the stairs 2 at a time, her keys already out. Mateo was asleep on the couch, his math homework scattered across the coffee table. The TV played some anime he'd been obsessed with. He looked so small, so innocent. 12 years old, and he still slept with his mouth open like he had when he was a baby. Mara locked the door, threw the deadbolt, and wedged a chair under the handle. Then she sat on the floor beside the couch and watched her son breathe, tears streaming down her face. She'd saved a life tonight. That's what EMTs did. That's what she'd sworn to do. So why did it feel like she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life? Outside, a car engine started. Then another. And another. Mara went to the window and pulled back the curtain just an inch. The parking lot was still empty. But on the street beyond, black sedans were pulling into position.
1,
3,
7.
More arriving every minute. She counted 12 before she stopped counting. And in the distance, she could hear more engines approaching. Mara woke to an earthquake. At least, that's what it felt like. The walls were vibrating. Picture frames rattled against the plaster. Her coffee mug from last night danced across the nightstand.
Mom.
Mateo's voice cut through her fog of exhausted sleep. She stumbled out of bed, still in yesterday's clothes, and found him pressed against the living room window. Mateo, get away from. You have to see this. She pulled him back, but then she looked outside, and the words died in her throat. The entire street was lined with cars. Not just any cars. Luxury, sedans. Black and gold, gleaming in the early morning sun. Mercedes S-Class, BMW 7 Series, Cadillac Escalades. They were parked in perfect formation, nose to tail, stretching as far as she could see in both directions. Men in black suits stood beside each vehicle. 30,
40.
50, maybe more. All of them standing at attention like soldiers. Is it a parade? Mateo asked, his face lit up with excitement. Is the president coming? Mara's heart was hammering so hard, she thought it might crack her ribs.
Get dressed.
Right now. But now, Mateo. He ran to his room, and Mara grabbed her phone. 12 missed calls. All from Dennis. 3 voicemails. She didn't have time to listen. Through the window, she watched a limousine, longer than the others, with gold trim that caught the light, pull up directly in front of her building. The men in suits straightened. Some placed hands inside their jackets. The back door opened. Vittorio Leone stepped out. He was wrapped in bandages from neck to waist, visible under his open shirt collar. His left arm was in a sling, but he moved with the kind of authority that made everything else irrelevant. 2 men helped him, but he waved them off after 3 steps. He looked up at her building, directly at her window. Mara jerked back, but she knew he'd seen her. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She answered without thinking. Hello. Ms. Vasquez, the voice was rough, accented. Italian. The same voice that had whispered to her in the smoke.
Please. Come down.
I mean you no harm. You brought an army to my home. I brought gratitude. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I ask. The line went dead. Mara stood frozen. Every instinct screamed at her to grab Mateo and run. But run where? There were 50 cars outside. 50 armed men. If Vittorio Leone wanted to hurt her, she'd already be dead. She knocked on Mateo's door. Stay in your room. Don't come out until I tell you. Mom, what's happening? Just stay inside. She took the stairs down, her legs shaking with each step. The lobby door felt heavier than usual. When she pushed it open, the morning air hit her face, cool and crisp. All 50 men turned to look at her. Vittorio stood in the center, leaning slightly on a cane she hadn't noticed before. Up close, she could see the extent of his injuries. Stitches along his jawline. A bandage over his left eye. His skin was gray with pain and exhaustion. But he smiled when he saw her. Ms. Vasquez. Thank you for coming down. What do you want? Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I want to thank you. He took a step forward, wincing. You pulled me from fire. You stopped my bleeding. The doctors say without your quick action, I would have died on that highway. I'm an EMT. It's my job. No, his smile faded. Your job is to call for help and wait for firefighters. Your job is to stay safe. But you ran into flames. You cut me free. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me burn. I didn't know who you were. I know. That makes it more remarkable. He reached into his jacket, half the men around them tensed, and pulled out an envelope. Your family is now under Leone protection. This building, your son's school, everywhere you go. No one will harm you. No one will threaten you. You have my word. I don't want your protection. It's not optional. His voice hardened just slightly. You saved my body. You saved my blood. In my world, that creates a debt. A debt I intend to honor. I don't want anything from you. Then you're a fool, one of his lieutenants spoke up, a thick-necked man with scar tissue where his left ear should have been. The boss offers you his gratitude and you spit on it. Enough, Sal. Vittorio's voice was quiet, but the lieutenant immediately went silent. Vittorio looked back at Mara. You saved my life. Do you understand what that means? To my enemies, you're a problem. To the FBI, you're a witness.
To my own people, he paused.
Some will see you as a liability, but I see you as family.
Familia.
He bowed. Actually bowed. A slight dip of his head that somehow felt more significant than any words. Your son will want for nothing. His school tuition paid. Your rent paid. Any medical expenses covered. And if anyone at all, threatens you or your boy, they answer to me. Mara's voice shook. I saved you because it was the right thing to do. Not for payment. I know, Vittorio straightened, grimacing at the pain. That's why you'll accept it anyway. Because the alternative is that you die, and what message does that send? That saving Vittorio Leone is a death sentence. He placed the envelope on the ground between them. Think about it. For your son's sake, if not your own. He turned and walked back to the limousine. The men in suits began returning to their vehicles, engines starting in a synchronized rumble that shook the ground. Within 3 minutes, the street was empty. Mara stood alone on the sidewalk, staring at the envelope. Above her, Matteo's face was pressed against the window, his eyes wide with wonder. And Mara knew, with absolute certainty, that her life had just changed forever. The envelope sat on Mara's kitchen table for 2 hours before she opened it. Inside, a cashier's check for $50,000 and a business card with a single phone number embossed in gold. Matteo kept asking questions she couldn't answer. She told him it was a mistake, a publicity stunt, something for TV. He didn't believe her. 12-year-olds never did. Her phone rang at noon. The same unknown number. Ms. Vasquez, a car will arrive for you at 2 o'clock, a woman's voice said. Professional.
Cold.
Mr. Leone requests your presence for lunch. I'm not coming. It wasn't a question. The car will be there at 2". The line went dead. Mara wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she called Dennis. Holy hell, Mara, are you okay? He answered before the first ring finished. I drove past your place this morning. There were 50 freaking cars. I know. I was here. What did they want? To thank me. I think. You think. Dennis's voice climbed an octave. Mara, that was the Leone family. The whole damn family. Do you understand what that means? That I should have let him burn? Silence on the other end. Then, I didn't say that. But you thought it.
No.
I thought that you're the bravest person I know, and also the most stubborn, and now you're in something way over your head. He exhaled slowly. What are you going to do? They want me to have lunch with him.
Vittorio Leone.
Then you go. You smile. You say thank you. And you pray he lets you walk away. At exactly 2 o'clock, a black Mercedes pulled up. No army this time. Just one car, one driver. A woman in a tailored suit stepped out and opened the rear door without a word. Mara kissed Matteo goodbye. He was staying with their neighbor, Mrs. Chun, and got in the car. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving Queens behind, crossing into an area she didn't recognize. Estate homes. Gated properties. Old money and new secrets. The car stopped in front of a renovated mansion that tried to look like a Tuscan villa and almost succeeded. Guards at the gate. Cameras everywhere. But the gardens were beautiful, roses and fountains and stone pathways that curved through perfectly trimmed hedges. The woman led her inside, through marble halls and past paintings that belonged in museums, until they reached a sunlit conservatory that overlooked a private lake. Vittorio sat at a table set for 2. He rose when she entered, moving stiffly. Ms. Vasquez, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? A smile flickered across his face.
No.
Please sit. The table was laden with food. Italian dishes she couldn't name. Fresh bread. Wine she knew cost more than her monthly rent. She didn't touch any of it. You're angry, Vittorio observed.
I'm confused.
And tired. And I want my life back. Your life back. He poured himself water, his movements careful. You never had the life you think you did. You work double shifts to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where gunshots are background noise. Your ex-husband abandoned you. You skip meals so your son can eat. That's not a life, Ms. Vasquez. That's survival. It's my survival. Mine to struggle with. Not yours to fix. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to honor it. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. You risked everything for a stranger.
No hesitation. No reward. Just
action. Do you know how rare that is? In my world, everything has a price. Loyalty is bought. Trust is earned through fear. But you, he shook his head. You gave freely. So now you want to own me?
No.
I want to protect you. There's a difference. Before she could respond, the door opened. 3 men entered. She recognized one, Sal, the scarred lieutenant from this morning. The other 2 were younger, sharper, dangerous in a way that made her skin crawl. Vittorio, Sal said, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt.
We need to talk.
About her. Vittorio's expression didn't change. Not now. Yes, now Sal jabbed a finger toward Mara. She's a problem. The feds questioned her. She knows your face. She knows what happened that night. She saved my life. And now she's a loose end. Another lieutenant stepped forward. Loose ends get people killed. Our people. Mara's heart was racing, but she forced herself to stay still.
To breathe. Vittorio stood slowly, painfully.
When he spoke, his voice was quiet. Deadly quiet. Let me be very clear. Mara Vasquez is under my protection. She is Famiglia. Anyone who touches her, threatens her, or even looks at her wrong answers to me personally. Is that understood? Sal's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake. It's my mistake to make.
I am still the head of this family.
Or, do you question that, Sal? The room went silent. Mara could feel the tension like electricity in the air. Sal stared at Vittorio for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. The other 2 followed, but not before one of them looked at Mara with eyes that promised violence. When they were gone, Vittorio sat back down, wincing. I apologize.
Some of my men.
They don't understand honor anymore. Only power. What did I just witness? Mara whispered. The beginning of a war. He met her eyes. You saved my body. You saved my blood. In doing so, you made enemies you don't even know exist. The people who shot me? They'll want you dead. My own men who see you as a threat? They'll want you dead. The FBI, who think you know something? They'll use you as bait. So, what am I supposed to do? Accept my protection. Let me keep you and your son safe. And if I refuse? Vittorio's expression was almost sad. Then you'll be dead within a week. And your son will be alone. Mara felt the words like a physical blow. That debt you mentioned, she said quietly. It's a chain, isn't it? Not a gift. Yes, he didn't lie. But it's a chain that keeps you breathing. And sometimes that's all we get. Mara refused the protection. She returned home that evening with Vittorio's words echoing in her head, but she wouldn't, let a crime lord control her life. She'd survived her ex-husband's abandonment. She'd survived working 3 jobs to keep Matteo fed. She'd survived this too. For 3 days, life almost felt normal. She picked up shifts at the hospital. Matteo went to school. They had dinner together, real dinners, not just microwaved leftovers, because that check was still sitting on her table and guilt had a strange way of making you cook. She didn't cash it,
didn't even touch it after the first time.
But she felt eyes on her constantly. At the grocery store, walking to her car, in the hospital cafeteria. She told herself it was paranoia. On the 4th night, she came home to find her apartment door ajar. Her blood turned to ice. Matteo? She pushed the door open slowly. Baby, are you home? Silence. The living room was destroyed. Couch cushions slashed open, stuffing everywhere. Her bookshelf tipped over, books scattered like dead birds. The TV was smashed, screen spiderwebbed and dark. Someone had torn her home apart. She pulled out her phone, but before she could dial 911, she heard it, a footstep in Matteo's room. Mara grabbed the kitchen knife block and pulled out the biggest blade. Her hands were shaking, but she forced herself forward. I already called the police, she lied, her voice loud. They're on their way. Another footstep. Closer now. In the hallway. A man emerged from Matteo's room. Tall, lean, wearing all black. A ski mask covered his face. He held one of Matteo's baseball trophies in his gloved hand. Where is it?
His voice was muffled by the mask.
Where's what? Whatever he told you. Notes, recordings, names. Where did you hide it? I don't know what you're talking about. He threw the trophy. It missed her head by inches and shattered against the wall. Don't play stupid. Vittorio Leone doesn't trust anyone. If he talked to you at the hospital, he told you something. We need it. He was unconscious. He never said anything. The man moved toward her, pulling something from his jacket. A gun. Black metal, dull in the dim light.
Mara ran.
She bolted for the door, but he was faster. His hand caught her shoulder, spinning her around. She swung the knife wildly. It caught his forearm, cutting through fabric and skin. He cursed and stumbled back. She made it to the hallway and started screaming. Help! Somebody help me! The stairwell echoed with her voice. She took the stairs down 3 at a time, nearly falling, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might explode. Behind her, 2 sets of footsteps. Not 1.
2.
There were 2 of them. She hit the lobby level and burst through the door into the night air. The parking lot was dark, empty. Her car was across the lot. Too far. She'd never make it. A hand grabbed her hair from behind, yanking her backward. She screamed and thrashed, the knife gone now, lost somewhere on the stairs. Stupid bitch, a different voice growled. The boss said to make it look like a robbery. Quick and quiet. But you had to fight. He dragged her toward the alley between buildings. She clawed at his hands, kicked backward, but he was too strong. Then headlights. A black Escalade screeched into the parking lot, tires smoking. It didn't slow down. Didn't stop. It drove straight at them. The man dropped Mara and dove aside. She hit the pavement hard, skinning her palms. The Escalade's passenger door flew open while it was still moving. Get in, a voice shouted. Mara didn't think. She scrambled up and threw herself into the vehicle. Hands pulled her inside, and the Escalade was moving before the door closed. Gunshots. 3 of them. The rear window exploded into diamond fragments. Stay down, someone yelled. Mara pressed herself against the floor, glass raining down on her back. The SUV accelerated, engine roaring. More gunshots, but they were getting farther away. After what felt like an eternity, the vehicle slowed. Strong hands helped her sit up. She found herself looking at a woman, late 30s, professional suit, the same woman who'd driven her to the estate 3 days ago. Are you hurt? The woman asked. Mara looked down. Her hands were bleeding. Her shirt was torn. But nothing serious.
I'm okay.
Who were they? Mercenaries. Renzo's men. Most likely, the woman handed her a bottle of water. They were asking questions about the boss. Mara nodded, still shaking. They think you know something. They won't stop. But I don't know anything. Mara's voice cracked. I pulled him from a car. That's it. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what they believe. The woman looked at her with something like pity. My name is Sophia. I've been watching your building since Mr. Leone returned home. He knew they'd come for you. Matteo, my son, where is he? Safe. We pulled him from school this afternoon. He's with Mr. Leone now. You what? Mara lunged forward, but Sophia caught her wrists. He's safe. They would have used him to get to you. We prevented that. Take me to him. Right now. We're already on our way. The Escalade turned onto a highway Mara didn't recognize. Her mind was racing, trying to process everything. Someone had destroyed her home, tried to kill her. And now Vittorio Leone had her son. What did he mean? Mara asked quietly. The man in my apartment. He mentioned the boss said to make it look like a robbery if they're working for someone who. Sophia's expression darkened. There's a divide in the family. Some of Mr. Leone's lieutenants think his gratitude toward you is weakness. They want you eliminated to prove he's losing his edge. So his own people want me dead.
Yes.
And the people who shot him that night want you dead. And probably the FBI wants to use you as bait. Sophia glanced at her. You understand now? This isn't a game you can walk away from. You're in it. The only question is whether you accept protection or wait for the next knife. Mara thought about her destroyed apartment. The gun pointed at her face. Matteo's baseball trophy thrown like a weapon. You saved my body. You saved my blood.
That debt stands.
She'd thought Vittorio was trying to control her. But maybe he'd been trying to save her all along. Where are we going? She asked. To the only place in this city where you're truly safe, Sophia met her eyes in the rearview mirror. To Mr. Leone's protection. For real this time. Mara closed her eyes and saw the knife in her hand, felt the terror of running for her life in her own home. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Because Matteo needed her alive more than he needed her proud. And pride wouldn't stop a bullet. The safe house wasn't what Mara expected.
No Gasik Mansión.
No fortress with armed guards at every corner. Just a brownstone in Brooklyn that looked like every other building on the block, except this one had bulletproof windows and a reinforced steel door hidden behind the ordinary wooden facade. Sophia led her inside, through a living room that looked almost cozy, leather furniture, bookshelves, family photos of people Mara didn't recognize, and down a hallway to a kitchen where Matteo sat at a table eating pizza. Mom. He jumped up, nearly knocking over his chair. Mara grabbed him, holding him so tight he squirmed. She checked him over, face, arms, hands. Not a scratch. Did anyone hurt you? Are you okay?
I've fine.
These guys picked me up from school and said you were in trouble. They had authentication codes and everything. Those words you made me memorize, remember? Firefly summer? He looked up at her with wide eyes. Mom, what's happening? Why did those men come to get me? Before she could answer, a door opened at the far end of the kitchen. Vittorio emerged, still moving slowly, still wrapped in bandages. But his eyes were sharp, alert. He took in Mara's torn clothing, her bleeding palms, and his jaw tightened. You refused my protection, he said quietly. This is what happens. Don't, Mara's voice was steel. Don't lecture me. Just tell me why your own people are trying to kill me. Not here. Not in front of the boy, he nodded to Sophia. Take Matteo upstairs. Show him the guest room. Let him rest. I'm not tired, Matteo started. Go, Mara said softly. Please, baby. I need to talk to Mr. Leone. Matteo looked between them, confused and scared, but he followed Sophia up the stairs. When they were alone, Vittorio poured 2 glasses of whiskey and set one in front of Mara. She didn't touch it. Tell me the truth, she demanded. All of it. The truth. He took a slow sip. The truth is that I built an empire on fear and blood. For 30 years, I made decisions that kept us powerful, kept us alive. But power like that comes with a cost. Trust becomes weakness. Mercy becomes vulnerability. He set down his glass. When you pulled me from that fire, when you refused payment, when you treated me like a human being instead of a monster, some of my men saw that as proof that I've gone soft.
Who?
Renzo Calabrese. My oldest lieutenant. We came up together, fought together. But he's old guard. He believes in the traditional ways, violence, intimidation, expansion through force. Vittorio's expression hardened. He thinks gratitude toward you makes me look weak. And in our world, weakness invites challenge. So, he sent those men to my apartment.
Yes.
To kill you and send a message to me. Vittorio met her eyes. But he's not alone. At least 6 of my captains agree with him. Maybe more. They see what I'm trying to build, something legitimate, something clean, and they see the end of their power. Mara felt dizzy. I just wanted to save a life. That's all. And now there's a war, because of me.
No.
There's a war because the old ways are dying, and dying things fight hardest in their final moments. He leaned forward. I was already planning to transition the family into legitimate business. Your act of courage simply accelerated the timeline and exposed who would stand with me and who wouldn't. What happens now? Before Vittorio could answer, the brownstone's front door burst open. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. Raised voices. Sophia appeared at the kitchen entrance, her hand inside her jacket. On a gun. Mara realized. Boss, we have a situation. 7 men crowded into the kitchen. Mara recognized some from the estate, Hard faces, expensive suits, the kind of men who hurt people for a living. Leading them was Sal, the scarred lieutenant who'd questioned Vittorio's judgment about her. And behind them, walking with the confidence of someone who owned every room he entered, came a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold blue eyes. Renzo Calabrese. Vittorio, Renzo said, his voice smooth as silk. We need to talk. There's nothing to discuss, Renzo. I disagree. Renzo's eyes flicked to Mara. You harboring this woman under your roof? After she's been questioned by the FBI? After she's seen your face, knows your location? This is madness. This is honor.
Honor.
Renzo laughed, but there was no humor in it. Honor is what you show to family.
To blood.
Not to some ambulance driver who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time. Vittorio stood, and despite his injuries, despite being outnumbered, he somehow filled the entire room with his presence. I declared her famiglia. That makes her blood. You can't just declare. I am the head of this family. Vittorio's voice cracked like a whip. My word, is law. Or has that changed, Renzo? The room went deathly quiet. Renzo smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Mara had ever seen. That's what we're here to discuss, old friend. Whether your word still carries weight. Whether you're still fit to lead. He looked around at the men behind him. Half the captains agree with me. The other half are waiting to see which way the wind blows. You're protecting an outsider, planning to abandon our core business, talking about going legitimate. You're not the Vittorio Leone who built this empire. You're right. I'm not. Vittorio's voice was calm now. Dangerously calm. That Vittorio Leone would have already put a bullet in your head for this disrespect. This Vittorio Leone is giving you one chance to walk away. I'm not walking anywhere. Renzo took a step forward. You want to protect her? Fine. But understand what you're choosing. You're choosing her over us. Over everything we built. Over the family. The family is what I say it is. Then the family is dead. Renzo turned to leave, his men following. At the doorway, he looked back. You have 48 hours, Vittorio. 48 hours to send her away. Her and the boy. Or this goes to a vote. And I promise you, brother, you won't like the result. They left, the door slamming behind them with a finality that shook the walls. Sophia immediately pulled out her phone. I'll call in our loyalists. Get protection details on all your properties. No, Vittorio held up a hand. Let him make his move. I want to see who stands where when the moment comes. He turned to Mara, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before.
Fear.
Not for himself. For her. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You saved my life, and I've dragged you into hell. Upstairs, Matteo called out for her, his voice small and scared. Mara looked at Vittorio Leone, crime lord and would-be protector, and realized they were both trapped now. Trapped by honor. By debt. By a single act of mercy that had set the world on fire. 48 hours, she whispered. What happens in 48 hours? Vittorio's expression was grim.
Va.
The new safe house made the Brooklyn brownstone look like a prison cell. Sophia drove them 2 hours north of the city, into Westchester County, where estates hid behind stone walls and ancient trees. The house, no, the compound, sat on 12 acres of wooded property. Security cameras on every tree. Motion sensors along the perimeter. Guard posts disguised as gardener sheds. 6 armed men patrolled the grounds. 3 more stayed inside at all times. Matteo thought it was incredible. Mom, there's a pool. And a game room with an actual arcade machine. And the fridge is full of, like, everything. He was bouncing on his toes in the marble foyer. Can we stay here forever? No, Mara said flatly. But she knew what forever looked like now. It looked like armed guards and locked gates, and her 12-year-old son thinking a gilded cage was paradise. Sophia showed them to their rooms, adjoining suites on the 2nd floor, with views of the woods. Everything was expensive, tasteful, suffocating. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. Designer toiletries in the bathroom. Clothes in the closet that somehow fit both of them perfectly. Mr. Leone will arrive tomorrow morning, Sophia said. Until then, please stay inside. Don't go near the windows. Don't answer the door. We're prisoners, Mara said. You're protected. There's a difference. After Sophia left, Mara sat on the edge of the bed and tried not to scream. Her apartment was destroyed. Her job, she'd missed 3 shifts without calling in. She was probably fired. Her entire life had been erased in less than a week. All because she'd pulled a man from a burning car. She looked at her hands. The cuts from the broken glass were healing, but they still stung. Everything stung. A knock on the door between her room and Mateo's. Mom, can I come in? Yeah, baby. He sat beside her, and for a moment, he wasn't a 12-year-old trying to act tough. He was just her little boy, scared and confused. Are we in trouble? He asked quietly.
No.
We're being protected. From what? How did you explain organized crime to a child? How did you say that bad men wanted them dead because she'd done something good? From people who don't understand kindness, she finally said. People who think helping others is a weakness. That's stupid.
Yeah, it is.
Mateo leaned against her shoulder. The men with guns. They're Mr. Leone's people, right? The man you saved. Yes. So, he's keeping us safe because you saved him. Something like that. Mateo was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad never kept us safe. He just left. The words hit Mara like a punch to the chest. Baby. I'm not sad about it. Not anymore. I noticed things, you know? That man, Mr. Leone, he got hurt real bad, and he still came to our apartment with all those cars. He still made sure we're okay. Dad couldn't even remember to send birthday cards. Mara pulled him close, kissing the top of his head. You're too smart for your own good. I get it from you. They sat like that until Mateo fell asleep against her shoulder, exhausted from the adrenaline and fear. She carried him to his bed. He was getting too big for this, growing so fast, and covered him with blankets that cost more than her monthly rent used to. Then she went downstairs, needing air, needing space, needing something. One of the guards, a young man with kind eyes, stopped her at the base of the stairs. Ma'am, you should stay upstairs. I need to make a call. Privacy. Please. He hesitated, then nodded toward a study off the main hallway. 5 minutes. Don't go near the windows. The study was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves filled with volumes in Italian. She pulled out her phone and called Dennis. He answered on the first ring. Jesus, Mara, where are you? The hospital's been calling me, asking if you're alive. Your apartment is a crime scene.
I'm okay.
Mateo's okay.
Where?
Somewhere safe. With him? With Leone? I didn't have a choice, Dennis. They tried to kill me. In my own home. She heard him exhale slowly. I know. I heard. The police found blood in your stairwell. Not yours, someone else's. And shell casings in the parking lot. His voice dropped. Mara, what the hell is happening? I don't know. I saved a man's life, and now there's a war over it.
His own people want me dead.
The people who shot him want me dead. And he's the only one standing between me and a bullet. So, what are you going to do? Survive. Keep Mateo safe. Hope this ends before. A scream cut through the air. Mateo's scream. Mara dropped the phone and ran. The guard was already ahead of her, taking the stairs 3 at a time. She followed, her heart in her throat.
Mateo's door was open.
He stood in the middle of the room, pointing at the window. There was someone outside. A man. He was looking right at me. The guard was already on his radio. Possible breach, northeast corner, 2nd floor. Lock it down. Alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed in the hallways. Footsteps thundered from every direction as guards converged on their location. Sophia appeared, gun drawn. Get them to the safe room.
Now.
What's safe room? Mara demanded. This way. Quickly. They were pushed down the hallway to what looked like a linen closet. Sophia pressed her palm against a panel. The back wall slid open, revealing a reinforced steel door with a keypad. Inside. Both of you. The safe room was small, windowless, with a single LED light and a metal bench. Medical supplies. Water. A phone on the wall. Stay here until I come back, Sophia ordered. Don't open this door for anyone else. But the door slammed shut. A heavy lock engaged with a mechanical thunk. Mara pulled Mateo close as he shook against her. Outside, she could hear shouting, running footsteps, the sound of vehicles starting.
Mom, I'm scared.
I know, baby. Me too. The phone on the wall rang, a harsh, jarring sound in the small space. Mara picked it up with trembling hands. Ms. Vasquez, Vittorio's voice, tight with controlled fury. Are you hurt?
No.
But someone was outside Mateo's window. I know. My men are searching the perimeter now, he paused. Renzo is sending a message. He wants you to know that no place is safe. That my protection means nothing. Then what do we do? You stay in that room until I arrive. And then his voice hardened. Then we end this. Once and for all. The line went dead. Mara sat on the cold metal bench, holding her son in the dark, and realized the truth. This wasn't protection. This was war. And they were right in the middle of it. They found the Watcher in the woods an hour later. Not a hitman. Not an assassin. Just a local teenager paid $500 to look through a window and take a photo. He'd never fired a gun in his life. Probably didn't even know who Vittorio Leone was. But Mateo didn't know that. All he knew was that someone had been watching him sleep. Mara held him in the safe room until dawn, feeling him flinch at every sound. When Sophia finally opened the door, Mateo wouldn't let go of her hand. It was nothing, Sophia said, but her expression told a different story. A kid. Renzo's people paid him to scare you. It worked, Mara said quietly. Vittorio arrived at noon in a convoy of 3 vehicles. He looked worse than before, his face gray, moving like every step caused pain. But his eyes burned with controlled rage. He found them in the library. Mateo was curled up on the couch, pretending to read a book, but Mara could see his hands shaking. I need to speak with your mother, Vittorio said gently. In private. I want to stay, Mateo said. His voice was small, terrified. Mara's heart broke. Baby, it's okay. I'll be right outside. No. Mateo looked up at her, and there were tears in his eyes. Every time you leave, something bad happens. Please don't go. She pulled him close. I'm not going anywhere. Mr. Leone can talk in front of both of us. Vittorio studied them for a moment, then nodded. He lowered himself carefully into a chair across from them. I'm moving you again, he said. Somewhere more secure. There is nowhere more secure. Mara's voice cracked. You have guards, cameras, alarms, and they still got close enough to look through his window. How is another house going to help? The next location has. No, the word came out harder than she intended. No more houses. No more running. I can't do this to him. She looked down at Mateo, at his pale face and frightened eyes, and something inside her shifted. Hardened. You said you had 2 options for me, she said to Vittorio. Run forever, or let you end every threat permanently. I'm choosing the second one. Mom, Mateo started. Not because I trust you, Mara continued, her eyes locked on Vittorio's. But because my son deserves to sleep without fear. He deserves to go to school, to play with friends, to be a kid. And right now, the only way that happens is if this ends. Vittorio leaned forward. Do you understand what you're asking? This isn't a disagreement. I can negotiate. This is a war.
People will die.
People are already dying. Or trying to. And sooner or later, it's going to be us. She felt Mateo press closer against her side. So yes, I understand. Do what you need to do. Mara. But I have conditions, she cut him off. Mateo stays out of it. Completely. Whatever happens, wherever this goes, he doesn't see violence. He doesn't get used as bait. He gets to be a child. Agreed. And when this is over, when it's really over, we get our lives back. Not this. She gestured at the mansion around them. Our actual lives. Our apartment, my job, his school. Normal. Vittorio was quiet for a long moment. If you want normal, you need to understand something. After what you've seen, after what you know, the FBI will never stop watching you. My enemies will never stop wondering what secrets you carry. Normal doesn't exist for you anymore. Then we'll make a new normal, her voice was steel. But it'll be ours. Not yours. A ghost of a smile crossed Vittorio's face. You're stronger than you look, Ms. Vasquez. I'm a single mother in New York. I've always been strong. I just didn't have to use it like this before. He stood slowly. There's a family meeting tonight. The captains, lieutenants, everyone with a stake in how this family operates. Renzo has called for a vote. Either I step down and he takes control, or he paused. Or we see who's truly loyal. What do you need from me? Nothing. You've done enough. That's not true, Mara stood, gently moving Matteo aside. If I'm the reason for this war, then I should be there. Let them see me. Let them see that I'm not some ghost they can be afraid of. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. Hiding didn't keep us safe. Running didn't keep us safe. Maybe facing it will. Vittorio studied her, and she saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. You would stand in a room full of criminals and killers? For what? For peace. For my son, she met his eyes. You said I saved your body, your blood. That made me famiglia. So let me act like it. Let me help end this. Before Vittorio could respond, Sophia entered quickly. Boss, we have a problem. Matteo's school called. Someone tried to sign him out this morning. Used a fake ID, claimed to be his uncle. Mara felt the room tilt. He doesn't have an uncle. I know. Our people at the school stopped it, but Sophia's expression was grim. They're escalating. They're not just trying to scare you anymore. They're trying to take him. Matteo grabbed Mara's hand so tightly it hurt. And Mara felt something she'd been holding back for days finally break free. Not fear. Not panic.
Rage. Pure, focud, maternal rage.
She turned to Vittorio. When is this meeting? Tonight. 8 o'clock. I'll be there. And I want to talk to Renzo myself. Mara, that's insane. He threatened my child. Her voice was quiet, deadly. He sent men to my home. He terrorized my son. And now he tried to kidnap him from school. She took a step closer to Vittorio. You wanted me to understand what famiglia means? I understand. It means you protect your own. At any cost. Vittorio looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, a real smile, tinged with something like admiration. You're going to start a war, Ms. Vasquez. No, Mara looked down at Matteo, at his terrified face, and made her choice. I'm going to end one. Because she'd spent 12 years being afraid. Afraid of not having enough money. Afraid of failing as a mother. Afraid of the world breaking her son. But fear didn't stop bullets. Fear didn't keep children safe. Only action did. And tonight, Mara Vasquez was done being afraid. The meeting took place at a lakefront mansion 40 miles north of the city. Mara had imagined something from a movie, dark rooms, cigar smoke, men in fedoras. Instead, it looked like a corporate board meeting. A long mahogany table in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the water. Leather chairs. Tablets and phones. Men in expensive suits talking about profit margins and territory disputes like they were discussing quarterly earnings. Except these earnings were measured in blood. Sophia had dressed Mara carefully, a simple black pantsuit, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. You're not trying to impress them, Sophia had explained. You're trying to make them forget you're a threat until it's too late. Matteo was back at the safe house with 3 guards and strict instructions not to leave his room. He'd made her promise to come back. She'd kissed his forehead and lied, saying of course she would. Now, standing at the threshold of the conference room with Vittorio beside her, Mara wasn't sure she'd survive the next hour. 23 men sat around the table. Hard faces. Cold eyes. She recognized Sal and a few others from before. And at the far end, presiding like a king, sat Renzo Calabrese. Every conversation stopped when she entered. "What is this?" Renzo's voice cut through the silence. "Vittorio, you brought the woman here? To a family meeting?" "She is family," Vittorio said calmly. He guided Mara to a chair near the head of the table and sat beside her. "She has earned the right to hear what's said about her." "This is insanity." A heavy-set man with a Brooklyn accent slammed his hand on the table. "We're discussing business, not running a charity." "Sit down." Polly, Vittorio's voice was soft, but it carried weight. "Everyone will have their say. Starting with me." He stood slowly, gripping the edge of the table for support. Even injured, he commanded the room. "For 30 years, we've built our power on fear and violence. Protection rackets, gambling, loan sharking. We've made enemies of everyone, the law, the other families, even our own neighborhoods." He paused. "And where has it gotten us? We're constantly at war. Our children can't walk the streets safely. The FBI has files on all of us. We're powerful, yes, but we're dying. Slowly. Surely. That's the life we chose," Renzo interjected. "This is what we are." "It's what we were." Vittorio activated a screen on the wall. Financial projections appeared. Corporate structures. "I've spent the last 3 years quietly converting our assets. The trucking company we use for smuggling? It's now licensed and legitimate, with real contracts. The warehouse network? Legal freight distribution. The construction fronts? Actual construction companies with city contracts." Murmurs rippled around the table. "We can transition everything," Vittorio continued. "Keep the money, keep the power, but lose the target on our backs. Our grandchildren won't have to choose between prison and death." "You want to go legitimate?" An older man laughed. "Vittorio, we're criminals. That's our legacy."
No.
"We're survivors. And I'm trying to help us survive into the next generation." Vittorio looked around the table. "But I can't do it alone. I need all of you to trust me. To see the long game." "The long game?" Renzo stood, his voice dripping contempt. "I'll tell you what I see. I see a man who's gone soft. A man who lets an outsider into our most private meetings because she pulled him from a car. A man who's willing to throw away everything our fathers built for some fantasy of respectability." He pointed at Mara. "She is the symbol of your weakness, Vittorio. The proof that you've lost your edge. You protect her while our real enemies sharpen their knives. You obsess over her safety while our territory shrinks. You call her famiglia, but she's not blood. She's not one of us. She's a liability." Several men nodded in agreement. Mara's hands were shaking under the table, but she forced herself to stay still.
Silent.
"You want to put it to a vote?" Vittorio asked quietly. "My leadership versus yours?"
Yes. Right now.
"Everyone here decides. Do we follow you into this uncertain future, or do we return to the old ways with me?" The room fell silent. Vittorio looked around the table, meeting each man's eyes. Some looked away. Others stared back, defiant. "Before you vote," Mara said, her voice cutting through the tension. Every head turned toward her. "Ms. Vasquez, this doesn't concern you," Renzo started. "It absolutely concerns me. You're debating whether to kill me. I think that gives me a voice." She stood, her legs weak, but her voice steady. "I don't know anything about your business. I don't know the difference between the old ways and the new ways. But I know one thing. I saved Mr. Leone's life because it was the right thing to do. Not for money. Not for protection. Because it was right." She looked around the table. "And since then, I've watched men try to murder me, destroy my home, terrorize my 12-year-old son. All because I showed mercy. All because I chose life over death." Her voice grew stronger. "If that makes me a liability, then maybe your world deserves to die." "How dare you?" Sal started to rise. "She's not finished," Vittorio said sharply. Mara turned to Renzo. You want to know what weakness looks like? It's not mercy. It's not trying to build something better. Weakness is being so terrified of change that you'd rather drag everyone down with you than risk growing. She took a breath. Mr. Leone is offering you a future where your children don't end up in prison or dead. And you're calling it weakness? That's not strength. That's cowardice. The silence was deafening. Renzo's face had turned purple. You self-righteous. Enough, Vittorio raised his hand. The vote.
Now.
Everyone in favor of my continued leadership, show hands. 12 hands rose. Slowly, carefully, but they rose. Opposed. 11 hands, including Renzo's. The room was split almost exactly in half. Well, Renzo said with a cold smile, looks like we have a problem. Before anyone could respond, the windows exploded. Glass rained down like deadly snow. Mara hit the floor on instinct, her EMT training taking over. She heard screams, gunfire, the sharp crack of bullets hitting wood and marble. Someone fell beside her. Polly, the heavy-set man, blood blooming across his white shirt. Get down. Everyone down. Sophia's voice cut through the chaos. More gunshots. Not from inside the room, from outside. Snipers in the woods. The lakefront meeting had been a trap, and they'd walked right into it. Vittorio grabbed Mara's arm, pulling her behind an overturned table. Stay low. Polly's hit. Mara shouted. I need to help him. You need to stay alive. But she was already crawling toward the fallen man, keeping below the line of fire. His eyes were wide with shock, hands pressed against his stomach. Abdominal wound. Arterial bleeding. Maybe 3 minutes before he bled out. Look at me, Mara said, ripping open his shirt. Polly, look at me. You're going to be okay. She pressed her hands against the wound, applying direct pressure. Blood soaked through her fingers, hot and thick. She needed gauze, needed proper supplies, but all she had were her hands and training. Around them, Vittorio's men returned fire. The conference room had become a war zone. Renzo. Vittorio's voice boomed across the chaos. You set us up. You brought them here. Mara looked up. Renzo and his supporters were crouched near the far exit, guns drawn but not firing. Just watching. Not me, old friend, Renzo called back. But I won't weep for the outcome. The Calabrese family from New Jersey. They've wanted your territory for years. I simply let them know where you'd be. You betrayed us. Your own family.
No.
I'm saving us from your weakness. Renzo smiled. When the smoke clears, those of us who survive will rebuild. The right way. Another volley of gunfire. A bullet tore through the table above Mara's head, showering her with splinters. We need to move. Sophia appeared beside them, blood running down her temple. There's an exit through the kitchen. We can reach the vehicles. I can't move him yet. Mara pressed harder against Polly's wound. He'll bleed out. If we stay, we all die. Headlights suddenly blazed through the shattered windows. Not more shooters. A freight truck, massive and black, crashing through the mansion's security fence. It plowed across the lawn, positioning itself between the snipers and the building. The gunfire from outside stopped, blocked by the truck's armored bulk. That's our people.
Vittorio shouted.
Move now. Everyone to the vehicles. Men scrambled for the exit. Some helped wounded comrades. Others kept firing to provide cover. Mara grabbed Polly under his arms. Sal, help me, she yelled. The scarred lieutenant hesitated. This was the same man who'd called her a liability, who'd wanted her dead, but then he was there, taking Polly's legs. Together, they carried him toward the kitchen. Behind them, Renzo and his faction fled through the opposite door. Let them go, Vittorio ordered. We survive first, settle accounts later. They burst into the kitchen and through a service entrance. 3 SUVs were already running, doors open. Sophia shoved Mara and Polly into the middle vehicle, jumped into the driver's seat, and floored it. The convoy tore down the driveway, bullets pinging off armored plating. Mara held pressure on Polly's wound as the SUV bounced over rough terrain. He was going pale, shock setting in. "Stay with me, Polly."
Talk to me.
My kids," he gasped. Tell them. Tell them I wasn't scared." "You're going to tell them yourself. Just hold on." They reached the main road and accelerated. Behind them, the mansion was in flames. Mara could see it through the rear window. Orange fire against black sky, sirens already wailing in the distance. "Where are we going?" she demanded. "Freight yard in New Jersey," Sophia said. "We have a medical facility there. Underground. He needs a hospital. Hospitals mean police. Police mean FBI. He goes to our doctor or he dies." The drive took 20 minutes that felt like hours. Polly's breathing grew shallow, his pulse weak and thready. Mara talked to him constantly, keeping him conscious, keeping him fighting. They pulled into an industrial complex, shipping containers, warehouses, cranes silhouetted against the night. Sophia drove to a building that looked abandoned but opened at her approach, revealing a hidden entrance. Underground, fluorescent lights flickered on. What appeared to be a functioning medical clinic, exam tables, monitors, surgical equipment. A gray-haired man in scrubs was already waiting. "Got a GSW, Dr. Rossi," Sophia said. "Abdominal, heavy bleeding." They transferred Polly to a gurney. Dr. Rossi worked quickly, cutting away clothing, starting in 4, assessing the damage. "You did good," he said to Mara. "Your pressure work saved his life." Another minute and he'd be gone. Mara stepped back, covered in blood, shaking. Sophia caught her before she fell.
Come on.
"Let's get you cleaned up." In a small bathroom, Mara scrubbed Polly's blood from her hands and watched it swirl down the drain. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger, wild-eyed, blood-spattered, wearing the face of someone who'd survived a massacre. The door opened. Vittorio entered, moving stiffly. His bandages were torn, fresh blood seeping through. "You saved Polly," he said quietly. "Sal saw it. The others saw it. You didn't run. You didn't hide. You pulled a wounded man out of the crossfire. That's my job."
No.
"Your job is to save lives in ambulances. This." He gestured at the blood on her clothes. "This is loyalty. This is famiglia." Mara looked at him. "Renzo betrayed you. He let those people know where we'd be." "I know. So what happens now?" Vittorio's expression hardened.
Now?
"We take the fight to him. No more defense. No more hiding." He met her eyes. "You wanted this to end. It ends tonight." "How?" "The same way all wars end. With blood." The underground clinic became a war room. Vittorio's remaining loyalists gathered around a map spread across a surgical table. 12 men, some bandaged, all armed. They'd lost 3 in the ambush, with 4 more including Polly too wounded to fight. Against them, Renzo's faction plus the New Jersey Calabrese family. Maybe 30 soldiers, possibly more. The math was simple and brutal. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "We go after Renzo directly," Sal said, his scarred face grim. "Take him out, the others fold. Or they rally and wipe us out completely," another lieutenant countered. "We need to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Sal spat. "He tried to kill us all, including the boss." "Enough," Vittorio raised his hand. He looked exhausted, his face gray with pain. "We're not negotiating. And we're not executing. We're ending this the right way." He turned to Mara, who'd been sitting silently in the corner, still wearing blood-stained clothes. "I need you to do something. Something dangerous." "What?" "Be the bridge." Everyone stared at him. "Boss, you can't be serious," Sal started. "Renzo's men, not all of them are loyal to him. Some followed because they feared change. Others because they thought I was weak." Vittorio looked around the room. But tonight, they saw something different. They saw Ms. Vasquez risk her life to save Polly. One of them, a man who wanted her dead. "So," another man asked. "So she's proof that my way works." That loyalty and honor aren't weakness. That we can be more than killers. Vittorio turned back to Mara. I need you to go to Renzo's holdout. Talk to his men. Show them there's another choice. That's insane. Sophia stepped forward. She walks in there. They'll kill her on sight. No, Vittorio said quietly. They won't. Because she's not one of us. She's not a soldier, not a criminal. She's an EMT who saved lives tonight. Even Renzo won't risk killing her in front of his own men. It would prove everything I've said about him. Mara's heart pounded. And if you're wrong, then I've sent an innocent woman to her death, and I'll burn his world to ash. Vittorio met her eyes. But I'm not wrong. I know these men. I know how they think. Right now, they're questioning everything. One push, one moment of clarity, and the whole thing collapses. What about Matteo? Mara whispered. If I die, he'll be protected. Always. I give you my word. Vittorio stepped closer. But you won't die. Because you're the one thing Renzo can't account for. Pure courage with nothing to gain. It's a language we've forgotten, but they'll remember it when they see it. Mara looked around the room. These hard men, killers, all of them, were watching her. Waiting. She thought about Matteo's face. His fear. The way he'd grabbed her hand and begged her not to leave. She thought about her destroyed apartment. The man outside his window. The kidnapping attempt at school. And she thought about Polly, bleeding out on the floor, and how she'd saved him anyway. Not because he deserved it. Because it was right. Where is Renzo? She asked. They drove her to a warehouse in Brooklyn, just 3 blocks from the hospital where this had all started. The building was surrounded, Renzo's men on the outside, Vittorio's at a distance. A standoff, everyone waiting for the first shot. Sophia stopped the car at the perimeter. Last chance to back out. If I back out, people die. More people. Mara opened the door. I'm tired of people dying. She walked toward the warehouse alone, her hands visible and empty. Renzo's guards watched her approach, guns ready, but not aimed. I need to talk to Renzo, she called out. About ending this. The guards exchanged glances. One spoke into a radio. A minute later, the warehouse door opened. Renzo stood silhouetted in the light, flanked by armed men. The famous Ms. Vasquez, he said. Come to plead for Vittorio's life.
No.
To plead for yours. That stopped him. Excuse me? Mara walked closer, forcing herself not to shake. Tonight at the lake, you let assassins kill your own people. Men you've known for years. Men who trusted you. They chose Vittorio over the family. They chose the future over the past. And you answered with bullets. She stopped 10 feet away. I don't know anything about your world. But I know that we're doing, betraying your own, siding with enemies, killing the wounded. It's not strength. It's desperation. Renzo's jaw tightened. You know nothing about what I've sacrificed. You're right. I don't. But I know what I saw tonight. I saw Vittorio trying to save everyone, even the men who voted against him. I saw Sophia risk her life for Polly. I saw Sal, who wanted me dead, help me carry a wounded man to safety. She looked past Renzo at the men behind him.
Isao famiglia. Real famiglia.
Not the kind bought with fear, but the kind built on loyalty. Some of Renzo's men shifted uncomfortably. And then I saw you run. While everyone else fought and bled, you ran. Mara's voice grew stronger. So tell me, who's really weak? I don't have to listen to this. Renzo pulled a gun, pointing it at her chest. Every weapon in the warehouse came up. His men aimed at her. But through the windows, she could see Vittorio's snipers aiming at them. One shot, and everyone died. Go ahead, Mara said quietly, staring at the gun.
Prove Vittorio right.
Prove that the old ways only know how to destroy. Kill an unarmed woman and see how many of your men still follow you. Renzo's hand shook. Behind him, one of his lieutenants lowered his weapon. This is wrong, Renzo, the man said. She saved Polly. She's not our enemy. She's with Vittorio. Because Vittorio protected her. like he's protected all of us for 30 years. Another man stepped forward. You made a deal with the Calabrese family, the same bastards who killed Tommy's brother, who took our territory in Newark. For what? To prove a point. To save us from extinction. No, the first lieutenant said. To save your pride. Renzo turned, his gun now pointing at his own men. You dare. A shot rang out. But it wasn't Renzo who fired. It was one of his own soldiers, aiming not at Mara but at Renzo himself. The bullet missed, intentionally, slamming into the wall beside Renzo's head. Stand down, the soldier said. This ends now. The warehouse erupted in shouts. Some men sided with Renzo. Others lowered their weapons. The careful balance shattered. And Mara stood in the center of it all, unarmed and terrified, as decades of loyalty and betrayal crashed around her. The standoff lasted 17 seconds. Then Renzo made his choice. He spun toward Vittorio's position outside, gun raised, murder in his eyes. Not at his own men. Not at Mara. At the man he'd once called brother. Mara moved without thinking. Years of EMT training, of diving into danger, of choosing action over paralysis, took over. She lunged forward and shoved Renzo's arm upward just as he fired. The bullet went wide, harmlessly into the ceiling. Before he could fire again, Sophia was there. She'd breached the warehouse with two others, moving during the chaos. Her gun pressed against Renzo's temple. Drop it.
Now.
Renzo's weapon clattered to the concrete floor. Around them, his remaining loyalists lowered their guns. Not in surrender, in relief. Like men who'd been holding their breath for too long and could finally exhale. Vittorio entered slowly, leaning on his cane. He looked at Renzo with something that might have been sadness. 32 years, Vittorio said quietly. We started together. Ran our first job together. I trusted you with everything. And you threw it away. Renzo's voice cracked. For what? For some fantasy of going legitimate? For her? He glared at Mara.
No.
For us. For all of us. Vittorio looked around at the assembled men, former rivals now united in exhaustion. She didn't save just me that night. She saved what we could become. A family that doesn't devour itself. A legacy that doesn't end in prison or graves. He turned to Renzo's former lieutenants. You followed him because you feared change. I understand that. Change is terrifying. But look around. Look at what the old ways brought us tonight.
Death.
Betrayal. War with our own blood. One by one, Renzo's men nodded. It's over, Renzo, Vittorio said. Stand down. Accept exile. Leave New York and never come back. That's my offer. The alternative is. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Renzo looked at the faces around him, men who'd followed him, who now looked away in shame or resignation. His empire had crumbled in minutes, dissolved by the simple courage of a woman who'd risked everything for nothing but principle. I want immunity, Renzo said finally. Protection from prosecution. And a cut, 10% of the legitimate operations. No, Mara said. Everyone turned to stare at her. No deals. No money. No percentage. She stepped closer to Renzo. You tried to kill me. You terrorized my son. You betrayed people who trusted you. You don't get to profit from that. You have no say in this. She has every say, Vittorio interrupted. The debt I owe her outweighs anything I owe you. So if she says no deal, then no deal. Mara looked at Renzo, at this man who'd caused so much pain, and felt nothing but exhaustion. You get your life, she said. You get to walk away breathing. That's more mercy than you showed anyone else. Take it and disappear. Renzo stared at her with pure hatred. Then he looked at Vittorio. You've already lost, old friend. You just don't know it yet. Sophia escorted him out, along with the 3 men still loyal to him. The rest stayed behind, swearing renewed allegiance to Vittorio. And just like that, the war was over. Not with blood, with choice. 6 months later, Mara stood in front of her new office, reading the sign for the 10th time that morning. Lyon Medical Services Emergency Response and Healthcare Logistics. It wasn't the empire Vittorio had originally envisioned, but it was close. The family's old fronts had been converted into legitimate businesses. The trucking company now had contracts with 3 hospitals. The warehouse network distributed medical supplies across the tri-state area. And Mara oversaw it all. Not because Vittorio forced her, because she'd chosen to. Because somewhere in the chaos and violence, she'd seen the potential for something good. Her apartment in Queens had been fully renovated, not by the Lyon family, but by the legitimate construction company that now employed 12 former soldiers. The neighborhood was cleaner, safer. The loan sharks and drug dealers had vanished, replaced by community programs funded by Lyon Industries. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Mom. Matteo ran up his school backpack bouncing. He was taller now, growing so fast. And his nightmares had finally stopped last month. Mrs. Chun says you're coming to career day. Of course I am. Wouldn't miss it. Are you going to tell them about the mafia stuff? I'm going to tell them about how I started a medical supply company. The boring business version. He grinned. That's probably better. A black sedan pulled up, not the armored convoy from before, just a simple car. Vittorio stepped out, moving easier now. The surgeries had helped. So had the physical therapy. He'd never be the same, but he was healing. Ms. Vasquez. Matteo, he nodded to both. I wanted to show you something. He handed her a newspaper. The headline read, Lyon Syndicate dissolved, federal investigation closed. The FBI finally finished their review, Vittorio explained. No charges. As far as they're concerned, the Lyon crime family died that night at the lake. What remains is just a collection of legitimate businesses. Is it true? Mara asked. Are you really done with the old life? I have to be. Half my former captains are now company executives. The other half are retired. We have board meetings, not sit-downs. Quarterly reports, not territory disputes, he smiled slightly. It's terribly boring. I should thank you for that. You already did. About 100 times. Not enough, he looked at her seriously. You dragged me out of a burning car. And then you dragged us all out of a burning life. Without you, we'd all be dead or in prison. Matteo tugged her hand. Mom, we're going to be late.
Go, Vittorio said.
Live your normal life. The one you fought for. Mara walked away with her son, toward the school bus stop, toward parent-teacher conferences and science projects and all the beautiful mundane details of life. Behind her, Vittorio got back in his car. The company logo on the door, a simple golden lion, no weapons, no threats, caught the afternoon sun. The city whispered that the Lyon family had died in flames and blood. But they were wrong. It hadn't died. It had simply transformed. From ashes and mercy, something new had been born. Not a criminal empire, but a second chance. All because a single mom saw a man burning and chose to pull him out. Because in the end, that's what heroes did. They saved lives, even when it cost them everything. Even when it changed the world. The end. 3 blocks away, in a small apartment, Mara tucked Matteo into bed that night. He was reading a book about emergency medicine, dog-earing pages about trauma response. Mom, he asked sleepily, do you think you'll save anyone else like you saved Mr. Lyon? She thought about all the people working in those legitimate businesses now. Former criminals with real jobs, real futures. Kids growing up in safer neighborhoods. Families no longer destroyed by violence. I think I already have, she said, kissing his forehead. More than I ever knew. She turned off the light and closed the door, leaving it open just a crack, the way he liked it. Through the window, the New York skyline glittered with possibility. And Mara Vasquez, single mother, EMT, and accidental revolutionary, smiled. Because sometimes the bravest thing you could do was show mercy. And sometimes mercy changed everything.